Hi students, so for today we're going to be looking at equivalent ratios, and you must be wondering what are equivalent ratios. Now equivalent ratios are just ratios with the same proportion. What do I mean by that? Take for example two fractions. Let me draw a diagram here. This is a poor representation of the diagram. It's a freehand drawing. I do apologize, all right? But just understand the concept that I'm trying to show you. So I take two fractions. This is a representation of a half. I shade this section here. As I said, that's a poor example, so poor. Do not draw like this in your notebooks. And then the second, I shade 2 out of the 4 parts. These fractions are equivalent because they have the same proportion shaded. It might not be the same number of parts, but if you take up one shape and put it directly on top of the other, we can see that we have the same size or the same proportion shaded for both. Alright, and that's the same thing with equivalent ratios. Do you remember when we were simplifying ratios? And after you simplified, you got a ratio smaller than the original, but we said that they were equal. The same thing, because even though we worked with two different ratios, both have the same proportion. So one is a simplified version of the other. If you have not yet watched that video on simplifying ratios, you will see that video if you click the link that I posted in the description box. Alright, so let's get into it. How do we use equivalent ratios? Why do we need to learn this? Like, Miss, why do I need to learn this? This has no application to real life. Well, it does. Imagine that you're baking nice sweet potato pudding and you have the recipe shown, but when you go in your refrigerator, you realize that you don't have 4 sweet potatoes, you only have 3. What are you going to do? You don't want to mess up the recipe. Well, you identify how many cups of flour you're going to need by using ratios. So let's get into it. In the problem, what is the ratio in the recipe? What is the ratio of sweet potato to cups of flour? The ratio is 4 to 2. Awesome. So this is saying 4 cups of flour, 4 sweet potatoes, to 2 cups flour. Now in our problem, we need to identify how many cups of flour we're going to use for 3 sweet potatoes. So what's that ratio? That's 3 sweet potatoes. Do we know how many cups of flour? No. So we're going to use a variable to represent the unknown. And I'm going to use F for flour. Now, the next step, we need to find what F is. All right? And no, this is not a simultaneous equation. It's not a simultaneous equation. So, what are we going to do? The first step is easy for us to visualize if we write both ratios as fractions. I'm writing the first ratio as a fraction. The first number here goes at the top, and the second number in the ratio goes at the bottom. And same for the second ratio. All right. And then we're going to separate them using an equal sign because they're equivalent. We're dealing with the same proportions. So now we can easily easily visualize our problem. The next step is, remember, our aim is to solve for f. So the next step is to cross multiply. What do I mean by that? Since we have two fractions here separated by an equal sign, we multiply the top number in the first fraction by the bottom number in the other. And I'm not saying that ratios are fractions, but we're just writing them as fractions so that we can visualize them. All right? Good. So we take the first number and multiply it by the bottom. So that gives us 4 times f. Writing it in bracket like that means 4 times f. All right? Put back our equal sign. Then we're going to take our second number, the second ratio. We're going to take the first number at the top, multiply to the bottom number in the other ratio. So that's going to be 3 times 2. All right? Now we are going to simplify. So 4f means 4 times f. Right, our equal sign 3 times 2. Awesome. Now we want to get f by itself, so we're going to divide both sides by 4 to get rid of that 4 beside the f. All right, divide both sides by 4. So f is equal to 6 over 4, or 6/4, or 6 divided by 4, however you want to say it. So in reducing this, 6 divided by 4, 6/4 is the same thing as saying 1.5 or 1.5. We're saying the same thing. All right? So at the end of the day, if we're going to use 3 sweet potatoes, how many cups of flour are we going to use for our recipe? 1.5. And this is how we use equivalent ratios in real life. All right? Now let's go into some more examples. All right, so here, the first yellow grid, we have the ratio 2 to 5, and that is equal to 4 to something. So we need to find what the missing value is. In order to do that, remember our first step is to write both ratios as fractions. So here we go. We write 2 over 5, and that is equal to 4 over, we don't know what that value is, so we can write a variable. Let's use x. Doesn't matter what variable. What's the next step? We cross multiply. So we're going to use our 2 to multiply our x. Remember, top multiply bottom. All right. And then we're going to use our 4 to multiply our 5. Easy. So this is simplified to 2x. 2x is equal to 20. If we divide both sides by 2, we get x. Divide both sides by 2, we get x on the left-hand side, and we get 10 on the right-hand side. So that means that the missing value is 10. If we look on this intuitively, if we simplified the right-hand side, if we simplified 4 to 10, the ratio of 4 to 10 using a factor of 2, notice 2 into 4 goes 2 times, 2 into 10 goes 5 times. Do you notice that we get the same ratios here and here? That's why we say they're equivalent ratios. They are the same proportion. If you simplify both of them, we can guarantee that we'll get the same value. after simplifying. All right? I hope it's clear now. Let's do one more example. We don't know what this unknown is, so let's go. Let's use the variable w. Doesn't matter. W over 6 is equal to 12 over 18. You perhaps can look on this and determine what the missing value is. Hint, try to simplify this variable. See what this ratio, see what it's simplified to, and perhaps you can guess what the missing number is. Alright, but let's go the long way. After we write our fractions, after we write our ratios as fractions, we cross multiply, top to bottom, w times 18, and then top to bottom, 12 times 6. 18w, of course, remember we write our coefficients first. We write the numeral before we write the variable. 12 6 72. We're going to now divide both sides by 18 to get the answer for the missing part. So 72 divided by 18 gives us what? Awesome. So the missing ratio, the missing value in the ratio is 4. Now, give a go at the last question, pause the video, and then return to see the answer. And there we go. That's our answer. N is equal to 8. You might be wondering, but Miss, the variable is on the right hand side. It doesn't matter which side the variable is on. Alright, 8 equal n is the same thing as saying n equal 8. We use the same principle. Alright, we use the same principle in all the problems. And we use different variables just for you to remember that a variable does not have to be x. It can be any letter of the alphabet. Alright, now I hope this video helps and all the best.